protests began on Saturday afternoon as soon as the news of the derby cancellation spread. East Bengal and Mohun Bagan supporters announced that they would gather and protest outside the main gate of the Yuva Bharati Kridangan before the scheduled time of the derby. The spark turned into a wildfire on Sunday afternoon due to the protests by East Bengal, Mohun Bagan and Mohammedan supporters. The bypass was blocked for over 4 hours. The protesters faced police batons while protesting against the RG car incident. Despite the police action, the protest did not stop. Even after the lathi charge, the supporters regrouped in front of Yuva Bharati. Although there was no derby on the field on Saturday, there certainly was one off the field, and all three major clubs emerged victorious in their protests. Since Sunday morning, it had been raining across the city, causing waterlog in some areas. However, the protesters did not back down. Taking advantage of the holiday, supporters marched towards Yuva Bharati in groups from the afternoon. Coming from different parts of Howrah, South Kolkata and North Kolkata, their destination was the same, Yuva Bharati Stadium. The primary goal was not the grief over the derby cancellation, but rather seeking justice for the victim of the RG car incident. In a press conference on Sunday afternoon, Bidhannagar DC Anish Sarkar of the Bidhannagar Police Commissionerate announced that Section 163 would be imposed in the area from 4 p.m. to midnight. Supporters of the three major clubs had planned a protest march outside the stadium from 5 p.m. on Sunday in the response to the RG car incident. The Bidhannagar police stated that they feared potential unrest during the march, as they had received confidential information that some miscreants might infiltrate the peaceful protests with weapons to create chaos and disturbances. The police even played an audio recording as evidence during the press conference. However, the warning issued during the press conference had no effect on the supporters. By then, they had already left their homes and started marching towards the stadium in groups. From 4 p.m., small gatherings began to form outside Yuva Bharati. The police were already prepared with barricades set up to stop the supporters. As the march grew larger, the police intervened. The supporters of both major clubs had gathered outside the VIP gate and were eventually moved towards Ultodanga. Later, the police began pushing the protesters further away, directing them towards Bengal chemicals. However, Mohun Bagan captain Subhasish Bose led a significant protest against a reported rape and murder case involving a doctor at RG Kar Medical College and Hospital. Despite the heavy rain, thousands of fans from Kolkata's major football clubs gathered at Salt Lake Stadium to demand justice. Bose, accompanied by his wife Kasturi Chhetri and All India Football Federation President Kalyan Chaubey, spoke to the crowd, emphasizing the need for justice and pledging to continue protests until the perpetrators were punished. Subhasish Bose and his wife Kasturi Chhetri stated that the rally marked an unprecedented unity among the rival clubs. Focusing on the border issue of safety and respect for women, he expressed disappointment over the derby's cancellation but underscored justice for the RG Kar victim was the priority. The demonstration saw fans from all three clubs, including Mohammedan Sporting, uniting in a rare show of solidarity despite being briefly detained by police. Mohun Bagan and East Bengal supporters, shoulder to shoulder, chanted slogans like "We want justice." They claimed to be holding a peaceful protest without any weapons and with no intention of creating unrest. They insisted on their right to a peaceful sit-in. However, the police did not show any leniency. Mohun Bagan and East Bengal supporters questioned why, if the derby was cancelled for security reasons, so many police officers were deployed to stop the protest. They argued that the derby could have taken place with fewer police officers. As the afternoon progressed, both the number of supporters and police officers increased. The police tried to push the protesters further towards Bengal chemicals, although some protesters moved, others refused to leave. At around 4:30 p.m., Mohammedan supporters joined the protest at the Yuva Bharati, further amplifying the voices of the protesters. Among the demonstrators were East Bengal supporter and actress Ushashi Chakraborty and Mohun Bagan supporter and theatre artist Shourav Palodhi. Shourav remarked, "If Indian football is hurt, protests will happen." Just before 5 p.m., the police suddenly began a lathi charge on the protesters, dispersing them. It is alleged that the police used their batons indiscriminately and many protesters were seen being detained and loaded into vehicles. The Rapid Action Force was also present at the scene, and the supporters were heard chanting "Police hai, police hai." After being chased by the police, many protesters took to the sidewalks, but the police continued to push them further towards Bengal chemicals. Supporters of both Mohun Bagan and East Bengal alleged that many were injured by police batons, including female supporters. Several supporters from the both clubs were detained by the police. In the midst of chaos, Kalyan Chobe, the president of All India Football Federation, arrived at the scene. His car was initially stopped before reaching Yuva Bharati, but he eventually made it to the front of the stadium. At one point, he was seen being pushed towards a police van, but he intervened. He then arranged for the release of the supporters who had been detained by the police, stating that he had come to Yuva Bharati to support the fans' demands and for the love of football. He took responsibility and requested the police to release the detained supporters. At around 5:30 p.m., the march resumed. The supporters who had been dispersed by the police lathi charge regrouped and began marching towards Yuva Bharati again. The police took their positions again, but this time they were more restrained. Protests resumed right outside the VIP gate of Yuva Bharati, where supporters of both major clubs gathered. A large police force was also present, and the protesters were stopped at Beleghata More, where they began protesting again, chanting slogans against the police. Meanwhile, the police tried to control traffic, redirecting cars from Science City via Chignikhata and from Ultodanga via Hatko and Bengal Chemicals. As they marched, the protesters were seen singing the national anthem joined by onlookers. Despite the rain, the protests continued, with some protesters sitting down on the road for a while before resuming the march. The crowd grew larger and the police remained on alert. After a long blockade, traffic began to move slowly on the bypass from around 7:30 p.m.
Justice for Ajibor! Justice for Ajibor! Justice for Ajibor! We need justice! We want
This is Xtra Time! Xtra Time!